Today I am really excited to be sharing with you how I created this really fun, sunshiny mobile to celebrate the first Harvest Festival of Lughnasadh, or Lammas, meaning Loaf Mass, and celebrating the grain and bread harvest. So in that theme, I created this clay using bread and glue and dish soap. It was super simple, and I know you guys are going to have a lot of fun. Check this out. Stick around. I'll show you how I created this one and one other one. So I'll see you. And here's the second one. Stay tuned. Okay guys, this is super simple. First we're going to need some white bread, a few slices, depending on how much you're making, some dishwashing liquid, and some white school glue. Those are the main ingredients for the bread clay. And then to mix, we're going to need a bowl, and I just have a chopstick here, as well as a tablespoon measuring spoon, and I did grab a pair of gloves. It gets messy, that's optional. So the first thing you're going to do is take the crusts off the bread, and once you do that, you're going to take the bread and make little tiny pieces and just pull it apart and put them in your bowl. And I have already done that, and this is 3 pieces of bread. Now measurements are going to vary depending on the size of your project. I've seen a lot of videos where people recommend 1 slice of bread to 1 tablespoon of glue and 1 tablespoon of dish detergent. I found that to be a little sticky, so kind of experiment around. Like I said, we have 3 pieces of bread in here now, so I'm just going to do about a tablespoon. If I have to add more, I'll add more, but you get the idea. You want to make a nice elastic dough, almost like a pizza dough or a real bread dough. That's the consistency that you're going for with this. So, you know, if it's too sticky, add more bread. The purpose of the dish detergent apparently is to decrease the stickiness of the glue. Not real sure of the science behind that, but like I said, there are a lot of these videos already on YouTube, and that seems to be the ratio people are going with. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what's worked out. So just use the chopstick or whatever you're stirring with to kind of initially get going with this. And as you continue to mix and stir, the consistency will change, and it will start to lose some of that stickiness. And like I said, if you need to add more bread, you can add more bread. You can get right in there with your gloves. I've already gone through this process, and I have some made here now. Now I did put this in the refrigerator overnight, so but it just makes a really wonderful dough, you guys. Check this out. I was super impressed. And you can see it kind of has a blue tinge because of the dishwashing liquid. You could add paint or food coloring to this if you wanted to. So that's as simple as that. And this is the kind of consistency you want. You can see it's not sticking to my hands. I think this ball of dough, I did 8 slices of bread with 2 tablespoons of dishwashing liquid and 2 tablespoons of glue. I was just playing around. So this, you can make any shape you want, you guys, but for today's project we're gonna be making some suns, and it's so simple. There are no rules here. I'm gonna put down a piece of parchment paper here to work on, but I literally just flattened out a circular shape. You can keep these as rustic or precise as you'd like. I did experiment a little with using this clay in a mold, and it didn't really work out so well, but I didn't do a lot of experimenting, and I kind of like the idea of the hands-on, don't need a lot of equipment to do this project kind of thing. So I think that lets everybody have a chance. There's my circle for the face, and then I'm just going to make some rays of the sun, and you can roll out a snake. It's really easy to work with, and I just pull off a little ball here and kind of make a triangular shape. Like I said, you can do whatever you want. Try not to have it be too thick because this is an air dry clay, but I also experimented with, and I'm just adding my ray. I'm just pressing this in, you guys. You know how to play with clay. It feels like Play-Doh, so it's that easy. I did experiment with drying this in a very low oven. I had my oven on 175 Fahrenheit, and I kept checking it after 15 or 20 minutes, and it seemed to dry that way. So that's how I'll do rays around the sun. I'll show you some that I've already done. And for a face, I just, again, I'm a big fan of using simple shapes, but we're gonna kind of do an eyebrow and a nose together. So I've just rolled out a snake, and I'm gonna kind of make it fat, like a long skinny triangle here, and real skinny on the end, and that'll be his eyebrow. Do whatever you guys want. Do what you feel. Okay? And again, I didn't want to use any of my clay tools or anything. I wanted to make this so anyone could do it. So I literally have a knitting needle and a knitting needle. I do have a small dotting tool, but you can use this to kind of just play with and sculpt with. So I'm going to make some nostrils here just by poking some holes. You can use the end of the knitting needle to kind of make spaces for his eyes. I'll give him another eyebrow. And I do have some glass beads that I'll use for pupils. You can use acrylic paint when these are dry if you don't have any glass beads. I guess you could use plastic beads too if you weren't going to put it in the oven. You could embellish it with anything you want. Put different crystals in. For his eyes, I'm just going to roll out 2 little tiny balls. I really am not getting precise with this at all. I'm going to kind of put that there. And same thing on this side. A little bit bigger. These are a lot of fun. I'll leave those there, and then I'll give him some lips. Okay, I'm not a professional sculptor. You don't have to be either. Give him a little opening in his mouth. Okay, you get the idea, right? So we're just playing around. You can, let's give him his eyes. I have 2 glass black beads here, just simple seed beads. And I'm going to just, after they dry, if you don't have these beads, you could do googly eyes. You could paint on eyes with acrylic paint. He's got a very surprised expression. So then I'll just want to give him some eyelids. Okay. Sculpt around. Now he looks sleepy. What else? Yeah, use your tools to kind of, add lines on the face, or some people like those circles for his cheeks. You can poke holes, like I said, embed beads or crystals. So that's the general idea of how to, just play around with doing a face. And then I'll show you a couple that I've done already, and these are dry. Let me just clear this here. Like I said, very primitive kind of. This guy's got some holes in them. The backs are just plain. I did put a hole in the top because I want to string these. And like I said, I just used, my knitting needle to literally poke through. You don't want it too close to the edge. So once you have, Now, like I said, um, a lot of the tutorials that I saw said that these dry overnight. That was not my experience. The one that I let dry on its own took close to a week. Now, it could be it was a little thick, but these particular ones I did do in that low oven that I told you. So, you know, I just kept checking them every 15 minutes until they felt, you know, hard and done. So that's where that is. And then the next step is up to you, you guys. You can paint these, and I'll show you one that I painted, and I'll tell you how I did it. This one I did already, and anyone who knows me knows I kind of like a grungier look. Now, you can have very bright and sunny, cheery colors if you want. If you want to do yellows and oranges and reds, anything you can think of to embellish, go for it. You could do glitter, embossing. Sky's the limit, okay? I'm just showing you what I've done. So, I have some of this DecoArt Elegant Finish metallic paint, and I am literally going to be right back. Let me get my paintbrush and stuff, and we'll paint these up. Okay, here we go. And I wanted to show you, I also made some spirals. I just made a snake and curled it, and once they're dry, they keep the shape, and I also put holes in them. So the next step is to paint, and like I said, you can do it however you wish. This guy up here I did with a coat of this Elegant Finish metallic paint by DecoArt. This one's in Glorious Gold. When it dried, I went over it with some watered down Americana multi-surface satin in black tie, and then I kind of sponged it off to leave the antiquing and kind of emphasize the lines. So we're going to do the same kind of technique, but I've decided to use different colors of gold paint. I also have this champagne gold by by DecoArt, and I have this Emperor's Gold. So I'll probably do one of each, and then these spirals as well. When that's dry, we'll go over it, like I said, with a coat of the black tie. So let me just show you quickly with this Emperor's Gold. We'll do this little guy here, which I think he came out really cute. So just, this paint is amazing and just covers in one coat. So good. You can see I put some gloves on, and it will wipe right off that black bead if you get it on its eyes, but you have to be too careful. So I'm going to paint all these up, and then when they're dry, I'll be back and I'll show you how we're going to antique it. Okay? So it's this simple. Fun for kids of all ages. Alright, so let me finish this up. Like I said, we'll do everybody a different color, including the sparkles, but that's nice too. I might, well, I always want to leave it, but then I really think that the extra layer of black adds so much detail. So that's what we're going to do, because at this time of the year, the sun's power is not so intense anymore, so he's aging. So let's get this done, and we'll come back and we'll age them up some more. Okay, these guys are dry now, and this next step is optional. You can paint these however you'd like, leave them as is, whatever you want. I'm just showing you what I'm doing, you guys, and hoping to inspire you. So I have this black tie, acrylic paint. Use what you got. I've put it in my palette, and I watered it down with a couple of spritzes of water, and I'm just going to go right in. I have a damp paper towel here. You can use an old rag. And I'm going to completely cover all this beautiful gold paint, and hopefully get this in all the nooks and crannies. I'm just going to show you one, and I'll do the rest off camera. And then we'll figure out how we're going to display these or hang them. And again, there's a lot of different options. I do the backs too. Yeah, okay. And before it dries, I'm just going to lightly dab this off, and all that paint will stay in the nooks and crannies and really emphasize the features and crevices and stuff we got going on. I love how that looks. If you don't like it, leave it vibrant. Do what you want. It's your project. So I'm going to finish and do all these, and when they're dry we'll come back and I'll show you some ideas I have of how to hang these up. Okay, so let me share with you some of my ideas here. One thing is you could just leave it as is if you want it to lie flat somewhere, or you could glue a magnet on the back or any kind of hanging tab. I like to use soda can pop tabs. Use some E6000 or strong glue, glue it on the back if you want to hang it on the wall. Or anyone who knows me knows how much I love my beads. So I have an assortment of beads here. I'll probably use yellows and oranges, maybe some reds. And I like to string them on fishing line, but any kind of strong thread would do. You could use cording, embroidery floss, chain if you had it, anything to hang something on, you know. And I would just simply thread the cording through here. Make sure your hole was big enough. I would add some beads to these strands, and then once you have a few on, tie a little knot in the string and then add beads over the top so it would be hidden. And then you could just have it hang like that on one strand of beads if you'd like. And to end the cord, to have something to hang on, I like to use these little, well actually they're big split rings like you would use for a keychain, and you can literally just tie a knot with your thread on a keychain and have it to hang there, and you could hang it on a nail or something. Or I also, can't get out of the fishing department, like to use these swivel hooks, and you would just tie off the, tie a knot on this little circle here, and then they hang from here and they swivel freely. So that's a lot of fun. So that's one idea, and I may bead all of them just so they have something to hang on. I also brought out, I just went into my stash, you guys. I deconstruct a lot of things, so I do have things laying around, but these are some old bells from another project. They're kind of coppery colored. I may use those. I have some crystals that came from an old chandelier that I had gotten at an auction. I may incorporate those. Just things to hang, right? And then what are we going to hang it from? Well, I showed you before you could use those split rings, or if you want, I'm a big fan of using things from nature. You could use a stick and, like I said, some jute twine, and just kind of tie this so it can hang like this. And then you can hang your sun down here, maybe add some ribbons or feathers, those bells, anything like that. Or I also had another idea in keeping with the solar theme. I did one of these just to see, and this is a little fancier, okay, and this is just ribbon here, and this is a chopstick that I painted gold using that Emperor's Gold, and I wrapped it in copper wire. And I literally, let me show you, took chopsticks and painted them, okay? And then I have this, I think this is 18 gauge, no, this is 12 gauge copper wire, craft wire, and it's super soft and it's really easy to work with, and I literally just wrapped it around the end, okay? And then off we went down the length. Look how easy that, okay? You can use the chopstick to turn it if you want. And same thing on the end. I just gave it a couple of wraps. And you could play with it more, you guys. I did it neater when I did it, but I'm just showing you. You know, use safety precautions. This is if you have this stuff. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Do whatever you feel like, okay? You could just paint a chopstick if you want. Wrap it with some beads. And then I just took some ribbon And I had some, this is actually Christmas trim, this gold trim here. And I tied it onto the stick on either end. I literally just tied a knot around and I added a bead. I threaded the bead up through the bottom of the ribbon, and I thought with this I could hang, you know, same thing, hang it, or I did another one here that's slightly different. I didn't add that trim. I thought maybe I could put them together and it could kind of hang like that, and you could have things hang from the bottom. Yeah, and then just more, you know, fishing line to hang it up. So whatever you want to do, they could hang against a wall. These are just some ideas. So I am going to do that off camera because it's going to take far too long, but when I'm done, you'll see what I've come up with, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. And yeah, I'll be back when that's done. See you in a few minutes. I'm going to show you two different examples. The first one, I did use the chopsticks and I attached them together. All I did was take some of that wire and I just wound it around and attached the two in the middle. Looks like a marionette thing. Now I will try to insert some footage of these hanging up, but for now, let's see, each spoke has those ribbons hanging down, and then I just tied a bell, and they're pretty much the same. Obviously you can't see it like this, but, and then the sun I have hanging from the center, and all I did was just bead a strand, and there he hangs, and there you have it. And then I did a second one a little bit differently, and I think this is my favorite, but you guys tell me what you like the best. I use that twig. Let's see, I can't really see. I just tied the jute twine, like I said, around the branch itself. Okay, tied a knot here, hung one of those bells, a couple simple beads, tied a knot. This is a loop. Okay, I'll probably just use that loop to hang it from. And then each side, I just tied some of the ribbon and I thread them through one of, you know, a big whole bead. And if you have trouble getting it through, you can poke it through with a paper clip or something. So they're just hanging down, and then I have beads on either side, and I use the spirals at the ends. So the beads aren't identical on either side, but they're about the same length. So I really like this. And I decided not to use this guy. I just wasn't, you know, he's not my favorite, but I will keep him around. He may show up in a mixed media assemblage collage later down the line, but so I didn't do anything with him. Like I said, I'm going to get some footage, or try to at least insert some pics of these hanging up, and I hope you guys are inspired to try something like this. Let me know if you do. Please check out all the links below in the description box. I would love it if you go check out my gypsy sister, Miss Rita Marie, and our Facebook group for the Gypsy and the Witch. All links are below. Have a beautiful, blessed day. I will see you guys very, very soon. Peace and love. Take care. Bye-bye.